What's up all my plant lovers, Devin is here and I'm at Mount Cuba Center in Delaware. This summer I'm taking a course all about native plants that bloom in the summertime. And if you're unfamiliar with Mount Cuba Center, it is a botanical garden here in Delaware that really does a fantastic job of growing plants that are native to Eastern Temperate forests, like east of the Mississippi River, but not quite far north as Maine and not quite as far south as, say, Florida. And in this class every week, we're learning about some of the most prominent bloomers or showy or ecologically important native plants that are grown here in the garden. And I thought I'd make a fun video showing you guys what we're learning every single week so that maybe you can think about adding some of these plants into your garden. Mount Cuba Center here in Delaware is one of the leading gardens in the United States promoting the use of native plants in our gardens. They have gorgeous gardens. They also have wonderful educational resources like this course that I'm taking in. And I also believe that it is ever increasingly important that we start to add native plants to our gardens. Growing native plants, it can be a little bit inaccessible for us at times because it's not what you find at your nurseries. It's hard to know which plants are native. It's hard to know where to cite them. There's just not enough available information for the average gardener out there. And so I think, one thing that I want to start to promote more and more on my videos is the use of native plants in our gardens. When we're growing native plants, they're oftentimes the most accessible for all of our pollinator friends, as well as many of the different critters that might be living in our region. So using native plants, we're going to be helping the pollinators. They're oftentimes easier to grow because they are adapted to our soil conditions, and they're also absolutely stunningly beautiful. So in this video, I'm going to be showcasing every single week some of the plants that I find to be the most absolutely stunning, unique, or distinctive plants, and plants that I think that would be gorgeous in any garden. So join me as I explore some of the gorgeous native bloomers here at Mount Cuba Center. So I wanted to start with one of my personal favorites, and that would be Hydrangea quercifolia. That would be the oak leaf hydrangea, which is particularly native to the southeastern part of the United States. And it absolutely has that reminiscent look of a Hydrangea paniculata with these panicle-shaped flowers. But what makes the oak leaf such a standout shrub in the garden are these oak-like leaves, which will actually turn a beautiful, brilliant color in the fall time. These shrubs can get quite large, but there are a wide variety of cultivars and varieties out there that will stay smaller to fit a smaller garden. So a lot of times native plants, they don't get the shelf space in nurseries and garden centers because they might just not be showy enough. But one plant that is absolutely showy and stunning would be the purple pitcher plant. That would be Sarracenia purpurea. Let me show you guys. These are carnivorous plants that actually will trap bugs and insects, and they use a digestive enzyme combined with water that it catches in its little pitcher to break down those insects, and then it absorbs those nutrients, and it's fertilizer, so to speak. Check these out. So here you can see them just kind of getting started, whereas over here they're a little bit more developed, and while they are called the purple pitcher plant, sometimes they will just be straight green. And here you can see this is where it will actually catch the water and the insects. Look, you can see some mosquitoes in there right now. So over my shoulder you can see a large mass planting of the Spigelia marylandica. Let me show you guys. These beautiful flowers will actually create seed pods that erupt and will spread the seeds over large spaces. That's why they fill in so incredibly. A little bit thuggish in that nature, but they have a really beautiful kind of tropical nature with those flowers that are gorgeous ruby red and then open to show and expose that yellow inner star. Look at how gorgeous they are. So this stately yellow flowering plant behind me is called Thermopsis villosa, and if it looks somewhere between a Baptisia or a lupin combined but a little bit taller, well, you would be on the right trail because this is in the Fabaceae legume family. So it is a wonderful nitrogen fixing plant which we probably know by now, nitrogen fixing plants will actually help improve the quality of our soil. So not only does it grow tall, this is a herbaceous perennial that grows this height in one season. So not only does it grow fast and tall every single year, it provides beautiful pea-like flowers with gorgeous seed pods, and it helps improve your soil. So of course, it's not just about flowering herbaceous perennials when it comes to natives, it's also about understory shrubs and small trees as well. So right behind me here, this is called a maple leaf viburnum, Viburnum acerifolium, and this will have wonderful fall time color. And you can see why they call it the maple leaf viburnum, because the foliage has a very reminiscent shape to a maple tree. Now you guys know I love ground covers because I hate weeds, and ground covers help keep the weeds at bay. A wonderful native ground cover would be this beautiful one. This is a Carex plantaginea. It's a seersucker sedge, noted for its really beautiful kind of like ribbed foliage that looks and feels like seersucker, and it will actually produce gorgeous clumps that'll just spread and fill out your ground layer if given nice moist conditions. All right, so here behind me is the mayapple, Podophyllum peltatum. Now this wouldn't really be classified as a summer blooming native, but it is a gorgeous, low growing plant that will actually produce wonderful flowers and then fruit. And I stopped and wanted to show you guys because this is in fruit right now, which gives it the name mayapple. And after the fruit has fallen or been eaten by critters like turtles, the plants will absolutely go dormant, and these will kind of just evaporate from the space. But here, let me show you what the apples actually look like. Check it out. Those are the apples. You can see 1, 2, and 3. And they mention that these are particularly loved by the box turtles. Another lovely ground cover for the shady garden would be this wonderful yellow blooming ground cover. It spreads by rhizomes, so it creates wonderful patches, Chrysogonum, virgianianum, and it will bloom pretty much on and off from late spring all the way until autumn time. Look at how it spreads. But I think of all the native ground covers, my favorite is this one. This is the wild ginger, Asarum canadense. And what makes it so special, in my opinion, is it has just such a thick coverage. It's so perfect, it looks so elegant, and these wonderful heart-shaped leaves are just phenomenal and stunning. And it will actually spread by underground fleshy rhizomes, which essentially means the rhizomes or the stems, they travel underneath the ground, and then as they're traveling under the ground, they'll peek their head up, create new sections of foliage, and then continue to spread. That's what makes these so special, and they can cover such a large area of ground pretty quickly. And then we'll also do well at the base of trees, which is huge. So behind me is probably my favorite flower that I learned about today, called Clematis viorna, the leather flower. And you might see these buds and you think, oh yeah, these are gonna just, they're just baby buds. They're gonna open and be huge like the clematis we're used to seeing. But in fact, not. They do remain small like this, but what makes them so spectacular is how thick these flower sepals are. They feel like rubbery, leathery, which is where it gets the name. If you could feel it, you could tell that it has a very thick, rubbery, leathery energy about it. Very, very unique, very cool. And the cool thing about these clematis is that they will die back 100% in the wintertime, so you don't have to worry about is it like a type 1, type 2, type 3, whatever type of clematis, giving you specific pruning techniques and pruning rules. This one will basically die back 100%, and then it will actually grow 6, 8, 10 feet all in one season. So it's a very rapid grower. Here it's first week of June, second week of June, and it's already full of buds and flowers blooming. So rapid grower, early to bloom, native, fantastically gorgeous, unique flowers. Now above me is the canopy of a beautiful white oak tree, Quercus alba, and native plant lovers and enthusiasts place particular importance on oak trees because they are ecological superstars. Now, not only are the white oaks incredibly large trees that live for hundreds and hundreds of years, They're actually what is considered a keystone species because they support an enormous array of wildlife, insects and critters and such. And for those reasons, they are very important trees in our ecosystems. Now this silvery foliage plant with these pendulous, creamy white flowers is called Zenobia pulverulenta, the dusty Zenobia. And its foliage, to me, it kind of reminds me of a eucalyptus with pendulous flowers that remind me of a blueberry. And in fact, this is a member of the Ericaceae family, the heath family, which is the same family as the blueberry. So the flowers are in fact very reminiscent, quite fragrant, and with that silver foliage, we remember plants with silver foliage are often more drought tolerant. And all of those reasons make this a definite garden-worthy small shrub. So a few plants that have gotten a lot of attention over the last couple of years with good reason would be members of the Asclepias or Asclepias genus. Right here we have the butterfly milkweed, and the reason why they've been so much like in the plant world news is because this is a host plant for the monarch butterflies. It's where the monarch butterfly caterpillars will actually feed off of their foliage. And so it's really important that we continue to grow these plants in order to support the monarch butterfly population. Now, the butterfly milkweed has this brilliant, bright orange flowers, and it's great in areas that are quite dry, inhospitable soils, clay soils. That's why I love it, and it looks fantastic when you plant kind of a nice, gorgeous little mass or mini mass of them, because it really glows. Clearly, it's also beloved by other pollinators like the bees. So behind me, you can see the wonderful main house here at Mount Cuba Center. Absolutely stunning. The Copeland House is what it's called, named after the family, the Copeland family that basically built the house and established the gardens. Now here in Delaware, Eastern Pennsylvania, there is a honeysuckle that's incredibly invasive, the Japanese honeysuckle, but in this Eastern Temperate forested region, there is a honeysuckle that is native, and that would be the Lonicera sempervirens. Let me show you how beautiful it is. It has gorgeous red tubular flowers, beloved by the hummingbirds, of course. And it's actually like a semi-evergreen vine, so you know, depending on where you live, it could be evergreen even. Where I live in Eastern Pennsylvania, it probably would die back like, I don't know, most of the way, but maybe not all the way. And it's a pretty fast grower. It can grow up to 10 or 20 feet all in one season. Definitely needs some training though along the way. So if you're looking for a magnificent tree, look no further than the Magnolia grandiflora. They can get quite tall, 60, 80 feet tall. Here in Delaware, they're going to be either semi-evergreen or evergreen. Warmer climates definitely will be evergreen. And they have lovely glossy foliage, thick, almost leathery. And it's called the grandiflora because it has grand flowers, large flowers that everyone loves, including myself. They have a wonderful kind of lemony fragrance. So if you see them in bloom, go stick your nose in one. So earlier I had mentioned the trial gardens they have here, and here they are. They're phenomenal. They trial so many different genuses here, and then they create all of these wonderful reports and pamphlets that are absolutely free to anyone that is interested in them. You can find them on their website, full of wonderful information. They test out a lot of different cultivars and species to see which ones are preferred by the pollinators, which ones have the best growth habit, all sorts of traits and characteristics that might interest you as a gardener. So we don't want to forget the showy herbaceous perennials like Monarda didyma, scarlet bee balm, incredibly richly colored flowers, fragrant foliage that the deer tend to stay away from. So right here is the cultivar called Jacob Klein. It's a rather tall cultivar, about almost 4.5, 5 feet tall, and pretty well covered with flowers, and it stays really nice and upright without flopping over. Rather mildew resistant. That's hugely important when you're shopping for your bee balms. So I'm about to show you guys a really cool plant that I had never heard about. I thought I knew a lot about hydrangea, or relatively a lot, until I saw this. This hydrangea is called the Hydrangea radiata, or the silverleaf hydrangea, and it's called that because the back of the leaves are like a silvery color. So what we have here is called Hydrangea radiata, sometimes known as a subspecies of Hydrangea arborescens. Was only kind of recently discovered in the Appalachian Mountains, and it has a form similar to the smooth hydrangea, but it has tons of these beautiful fertile flowers surrounded by those sterile flowers that you can see right here, and they are being devoured by the bees. Tons of rich pollen all over the place. Its common name is called the silverleaf hydrangea. As you can see, the backside of the leaves are wonderful silver, and if you have a chance to touch them, they're really velvety and smooth. If you're looking for a large shrub that blooms in the shade all summer long, look no further than this one, Aesculus parviflora, the bottle brush buckeye. It's a pretty big flowering shrub. That's around 25-30 feet tall. It suckers, so it will fill out wherever you might be planting it, and it produces these awesome bottle brush shaped flowers for a pretty long time in the summertime. And here you can see how they've pruned it so that it creates kind of like this underpass for the visitors to walk underneath. Absolutely stunning, creates a wonderful energy. Every time I come here, I'm just overcome with joy. The beauty, the peace, the tranquility, the lushness reminds me why I fell in love with plants. There's nothing like spending time in a garden to lift your own vibrations inside of you. So I'm here at the pond, and behind me is the swamp milkweed, the Asclepias incarnata, with gorgeous pink flowers that are delightfully fragrant, so wonderful to smell. And this is also going to be a wonderful plant to support the monarch butterflies, just like its close cousin, the Asclepias tuberosa. The difference between the tuberosa and the incarnata is that this one loves to be in moist areas. I planted this just at the base of my downspout, where it gets pretty heavy rainflow after storms, but then it dries out. So those are really nice conditions that these guys love. They can handle the moisture, but then they can also go through periods of a little bit more dryness. So today it's like 90 degrees. I'm exhausted, been painting inside the house all week, so probably won't do that many, and class has ended today, so this is gonna be the last day of some of our native plants. And with me behind me is the Liatris spicata, the spiked gay feather flower. Now, believe it or not, this is a member of the aster family, and I love it because it's pretty adaptable, can do well in moisture conditions, but it can also be a quite drought tolerant plant. But as you can see, it has kind of really nice grassy tufted foliage with these beautiful flower spikes. Now let me show you real close why these are a member of the aster family. Each one of these is an individual flower, and that looks like it could be the inside of any of our radial aster flowers, couldn't it? So initially I didn't think much about these plants. These are Stochesias, and I thought they were kind of bland, a little bit boring. The flowers are not super showy, the foliage is just okay, but they've been blooming for 4 solid weeks. That is a long time for any plant to be blooming, and it's a wonderful really kind of low grower, so it has a nice function for the front of the garden beds. And with that long bloom season, this is a pretty nice showy perennial. And you can see just how many flowers there are. Some are fully open, some are buds just getting started. That's what makes them such long bloomers. This is such a fun plant for the shady gardens. We're pretty much in full shade here underneath some really large tulip trees. And this plant is called Actea racemosa. This is the black bugbane. And it not only is it really have cool toothed foliage, very unique architectural shape, the flowers have a horrible smell. They actually smell kind of like rotting meat. I don't know if that's a feature or a detriment, but I think it is a feature, is it not? And in the past, it was called bugbane because it was used to deter bed bugs, believe it or not. So I guess that's where the nasty smelling flowers are a boon. So if you're looking for a mid-sized shrub, smallish tree that produces beautiful flowers in the summertime, look no further than rhododendron prunifolium, the plum-leaved azalea. Yes, we're in July and this is producing flowers. Actually, it's just now starting to flower. It grows about 20, maybe 30 feet or so. wonderful in the shade and provides these gorgeous flowers. Let's take a closer look. What other azalea is producing flowers right now? None. And last but not least is this beautiful plant behind me. This is the Rubus odoratus, the purple flowering raspberry. It provides wonderful berries, not super palatable for humans because they are quite seedy. But what is so striking about this plant are these huge leaves with this rich purple flower. The leaves, I'm not sure if you can tell in the lighting with the camera, but it's kind of like a chartreuse foliage, which contrasts perfectly with the purple flowers. So if you can imagine a plant this size with leaves this large, this is a herbaceous perennial that is going to grow from nothing every single year. And we're in July 1st right now. This is what the plant looks like after growing just for a few months. They are fast growing. They produce these huge, almost maple leaf like leaves. And as they grow, they kind of fill out wherever they may be growing. Not super thuggish. They're also not thorny like some invasive kind of blackberries might be. So it's a really wonderful garden plant. But for me, what I love most of all is the speed that it grows, these huge leaves, the way that it kind of fills out. It's almost like this like shrubby form, but it's a herbaceous perennial. So it's a really unique growth habit, really unique form for any plant in the garden. And it's absolutely strikingly beautiful with these purple flowers. Here you can see how it fills out where it's growing, has flowers just starting and just finishing all over the plant. Kind of has a layered look to it, which is nice and airy, nice and fluffy. Well, thank you guys for joining me here on this tour of some native plants of the Eastern Temperate forested region, particularly plants that are being grown at Mount Cuba Center in Delaware. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have some other native plants in your region that you absolutely love, or if I was wrong about a plant or something I said wasn't correct, or you enjoyed something I said, please leave a comment below. I love reading your comments, addressing your comments, having dialogue with you guys, creating this plant community here on Plant Vibrations. Anyways, thank you guys for joining me. You know I post longer videos like this every single Sunday, and I try to post maybe one short video throughout the week. I'll catch you guys soon. Keep gardening, keep loving your plants. Ciao.